Here is a little video of me restoring my Mazdaspeed MS01 Lemans 16-inch rims. A little backstory on the Lemans 16-inch rim. It was originally on the 787 race car that Mazda put out that was dominating everything in the early 90s and was eventually banned. Now, these rims I have are not authentic Mazdaspeed center lock rims that were on those race cars, but they're a replica that Mazdaspeed made in the early and mid 90s. One of the original ones did just recently come up for sale, and it sold for like $10,000 or some ridiculous amount. However, I'm restoring the rims from this catalog option here. There were 6 different types available. I think the Le Mans was probably the coolest looking one, so I look for the 16s because they're the rarest. Now, as you can see, 17s, they sell often and they go for a few $1,000s, and they're usually in pretty good condition. The 17s were more sought after in the early 90s, and they ended up selling more of them. So these 16s here, they're a little harder to find. Individually, they're about 600, about 4,000 when you can find a matching set. Very few of them get restored, like this set I found in Russia. It's actually a really nice set, however, it's questionable because it's 4 8-inch barrels, and that makes me wonder if the barrels weren't replaced. The original set of barrels are a staggered set, so it's questionable whether or not these are original, or if he just went with all 4 rears. Either way, I wanted to keep the original barrels in my build because they're really, really light. In fact, each rim is only 5 kilograms. So I found a set for a great price, but here's the catch. They're just in terrible condition. They have lots of oxidation, bad pitting. There was a couple nicks on the rears. The fronts just, they've seen better days. But, I mean, $600, you can't complain. For less than $1,000, I could find and have the 16s to my door. So, fuck yeah, I did it. Now, I gotta be honest, these things were in really bad condition, and so I didn't take any pictures of them. When they arrived, they actually weren't damaged from shipping. Surprisingly, like, I've ordered a lot of rims, and they normally get dinged on the way. So I didn't take any pictures except for this one. After I tucked them away in 2017, I just kind of left them, forgot about them. I ended up gathering a few more sets. Set of 15s for the Miata, set of 17s for the GTOS if I didn't want to run the VSXX rims. And that was that. So like 7 years later, I ended up pulling them out of storage and I took them to a soda blaster. Now the ceramic bead company couldn't do it because they said the damage was too severe, and I didn't want to trust using a media blaster because it could increase the pitting and the problems with it. Now, it didn't really get any of the paint off the lips, but it did get it off the faces, and that was a majority of the work. So I was satisfied with not having to do all the nooks and crannies, and I started getting everything ready to start sanding down and polishing up. After the media blaster got done with the faces, I ended up giving them one more sanding and then prepped them with some etching primer. Then came time to do all the lacquer glazing and clean up all the pitting, get rid of all the rough edges, and smooth everything out. After one more coat of etching primer, it was ready for a good 600, 1,000, 1,500, and 2,000 grit sanding session to get it ready for the high build primer. After laying a few coats of high build primer and going over it with 600, 1,000, 1,500, and 2,000, smoothing it all out again, I was ready to hang it and put some color down on it. Made a little makeshift paint booth in the garage so that I could end up doing the faces and the rims at the same time. I ended up finding a way that I could hang the faces just right so that I could do both fronts and backs at the same time. The lighting was atrocious, but I made do the best I could, and here we go. We got some color on it, and I think they turned out pretty well. I got a good coat on all the faces, front and back, made sure I got all the sides and nooks and crannies and everything, and so it was on to the hardware. This was a total pain in the butt, but individually I cleaned and then sanded and polished each individual one of them. Once the faces ended up drying, I brought them back in, and I was stoked with the results. Each one of them turned out great. The paint is smooth. The metallic is even, all of the, there's no drips or runs, all of the faces, they look like factory. So it's time to start on the barrels. Now these barrels, they're not in the best of condition, but one thing I will give them is they're mostly straight, they're not dented. So I didn't have to do any wheel lip straightening, which I have no idea how to do that, and I would have ended up taking it to a shop. However, these right here have all the paint still on them, as you can see. So that factory light silver that, you know, looks like it's the chrome finish, yeah, I have to sand all of that off. On a side note, if anyone's going to use a angle grinder from Harbor Freight, get the variable speed one and not the basic one because it will destroy it. It started to smoke, it threw its bearings out of it, it exploded in green flames. However, before it died, it did a great job of polishing up one of these faces. I must say, it turned out a lot better than I was expecting, and that gave me confidence on what the other one would be like. which turned out looking great. I was honestly very surprised how well they turned out. I wasn't expecting this quality of results, and for my first time doing rims, I was pretty excited. So I got the faces assembled on it, and they turned out looking awesome. I got really excited, and that motivated me to start working on the rears. Now, to get all the paint off of the lips that weren't media blasted, it's a great deal of work. Let me explain what it takes to get a rim just to this condition right here.
Got these back from media blasting to start polishing them up. That's the metal. This is all paint. See? It's all paint. Started with 80, then 100, with 220, 320, 400, 600, 1000, 1500, 2000, and now I am ready to do the final sanding, polishing on the lips. That's where the damaged part was. And then the next one, which I have also finished. Stages of sanding.
So now you can see why I was a little frustrated that I had to do all of this extra sanding just to get the paint off that I had already technically paid to have removed to get to this condition. Which is fine because it gave me the ability to learn how to take something like this and turn it into something like this. And take something like this and turn it into something like this. Now I couldn't get them completely out because I didn't want to take too much of the material off because it would damage the structural integrity of it. But all I had left was to polish up one last rim and then bam, they were perfect. They ended up looking so good. I was stoked. Here's a couple glamour shots showing all the different angles. The polish turned it out great. There was no nicks or blemishes besides the damage just shown. I was pretty happy. It had a nice mirror finish. It was looking pretty good. So yeah, I think that really it wasn't too bad of a turnout considering this is my first time ever trying to restore some rims. And I'm going to be pretty happy once I get these things all assembled. So I started putting the faces together, just like I did the fronts. And here's how all four ended up turning out. I think they turned out pretty good. I matched the colors nicely, I think. Everything ended up shining. The bolts ended up looking good. I still got to put the valve stem in, but hey, they say raise. Can't beat that. The back sides ended up looking nice. Missed no spots. Went with some black hardware to go with the gold. Thought that looked kind of nice. Added a little bit of definition, maybe a little depth to it. And yeah, all four of them are looking like they're about ready to go on the car. Just one last thing I need to do to make them perfect, and that's center caps. These center caps, however, they are not in the best condition, as you can see. While they were soda blasted and all of the grime and some of the paint and all that fun stuff was removed, there's still lots of oxidation. The copper, the aluminum, it needs help. So, off to the shop. Ended up busting out the bench grinder, and I spent all day on them, and they turned out great. Ended up redoing the brass, cleaning up the black plastics, chroming up all of the aluminum. It ended up looking pretty nice, I think. Unfortunately, the guy at the Media Blaster lost one of the little pin clips that go on the inside of them, so I only have two. However, they look amazing. It's exactly what I was looking for. Ended up taking those nasty old $600 submerged in some tsunami in Japan, I'm sure, rims, and ended up turning them into a decent set of Survivor restored 16-inch Le Mans MS01 center lock replicas that I think are going to look fantastic on my wife's 1080. So I will leave you here with this final video of some freshly restored Mazdaspeed MS01 Le Mans rims.